I'm joined now by Congressman Jamie Raskin. Thanks so much for taking the time.
I'm psyched to be with you, Brian.
So, Congressman, in the last 24 hours, we of course saw this assault and attempted arrest of Senator Padilla. This comes in the aftermath of Donald Trump's goons basically arresting the governor of Newark. We've had Democratic lawmakers, Democratic staffers, Jerry Nadler staffer in New York. And so this has become a recurring theme. We have a judge in Wisconsin at the same time that we're now seeing Donald Trump prepare for a military birthday parade in Washington, D.C. And so we have a lot of different elements of what an autocratic leader would do. And so how are you thinking about this moment as you see all of these different instances that would normally represent an autocracy, an authoritarian leader, kind of collide at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, these are all of the certain clues of an authoritarian regime in the making. So they arrest a sitting state court judge in Wisconsin. They have indicted my colleague LaMonica MacGyver from New Jersey for felony offenses that could total 17 years in prison for going to a scheduled visit to an ICE facility and then
Yeah.
just being in the crowd where they arrested the mayor. They had to drop those charges. They barged into Jerry Nadler's office and traumatized a 24-year-old staff assistant who was in tears as they handcuffed her for no reason at all. And then yesterday they threw to the ground United States Senator, Senator Padilla from California, for asking a question, for posing a question in a federal building where his office is, of a cabinet official. And that's on top of sending the Marines to the United States, to California, and federalizing the National Guard there, although that has been reversed by Judge Breyer in the United States District Court, dealing the 194th setback to Trump in court in terms of preliminary injunctions and temporary restraining orders. But the path is clear. We're on the path towards straight up authoritarianism.
That is part of a short video on a YouTube channel that has a staggering 4.5 million subscribers. So a lot of people will listen to that and that sort of rubbish. I say rubbish, everything Brian Tyler Cohen said there was true. Every fact was true. Every fact that the odious Mr. Raskin said was true. But what was missing was the context. It's a bit like somebody telling you he was runner-up in a chess match or a boxing match. That would be true, wouldn't it? I mean, if you lose, you still come second. Everything I said that I say was true. But as always, when it comes to Republicans, and especially Trump, nuance doesn't matter. So let's go through this rubbish, one point at a time. The assault and attempted arrest of Senator Padilla, like all the other factoids mentioned in this video, was caught on camera. Kristi Noem was holding a press briefing. She wasn't taking questions. She was talking to the press. And Senator Padilla walked into the room, shouting, talking loudly, asking her questions, tried to march up to the stage. And what would normally happen under circumstances like that? He wasn't wearing his badge. He didn't identify himself. Nobody appeared to know who he was. It's that important. So security, being mindful, tried to direct him away from it, and eventually they dragged him out of the room, pinned him to the ground and handcuffed him. I'm Senator Padilla, I'm Senator Padilla. How are they to know? And Elizabeth Warren, when she addressed that, she was, as somebody said, she left a trail of tears. And Cory Booker was just ludicrous. It's all Kabuki theatre. Anyone who walked into and up to a stage like that, when anybody's speaking, not necessarily political, maybe your local church fete, will be asked to leave, and if there was a perceived risk, would be restrained by security. So 4.5 million people potentially can watch that, and garbage. Point number 2, the arrest of the governor of Newark. What happened there was that a group of Democrats turned up at an ICE holding centre and wanted to be admitted. This is part of congressional oversight. What they should have done was phone up, email or whatever, and make an appointment. They didn't do that. Instead, they tried to force their way in and were ejected. The governor of Newark, he could have been charged, but they let him off. It wasn't that they had to. They let him off. As for Monica, who's facing 17 years, Trump supporters have been saying that, well, it's ludicrous. 17 years is the maximum for an assault, a very serious assault. What she did wasn't a very serious assault, but she did obstruct the security people, and she did assault at least one of them. Not, I mean, bam, but in this country or anywhere, if you shove a police officer, you're going to be arrested. Doesn't matter where you are, under what circumstances, you are going to be arrested. She was offered the chance to admit what she did and walk away with a slap on the wrist. Don't do it again. Don't be a bad girl. She said, I've done nothing wrong. Okay. So now you're going to court, sweetheart. Again, this is Kabuki theatre. Nadler. What happened was ICE agents turned up at his office. They had reason to believe that there were illegal immigrants sheltering there. That doesn't appear to be the case, but they walked in, and the woman who was handcuffed, she obstructed them, and they weren't happy with that, so they forced her out of the room, handcuffed her, and she was released shortly. Traumatised? Well, people are often traumatised when they're arrested or when they're simply handcuffed. Again, big deal. The judge, oh, this is classic. As I stress again, all this is on video, as in the public domain, has been in the public domain since it happened. They're actually filmed live. Certainly the ICE Centre and Senator Padilla, they were filmed live. The judge, Hannah Dugan, she had a guy appearing in front of her on a domestic violence charge. Now, I'm not saying if he's guilty or innocent, presumption of innocence, obviously, but he was an illegal immigrant, and the alleged victim or victims were in the court. ICE turned up. What did the judge do? She wanted to stop this guy being arrested, so she took him and his solicitor to the private, to the private door and let them out onto the street. Fortunately, there was an ICE agent followed this guy, and he was arrested. This is absolutely outrageous. Just because she's a judge doesn't mean she gets a free ticket. Judges and other officials do get a certain amount of immunity. A judge who is discoursing in the courtroom can't be sued for defamation, for example. Well, can be sued for defamation, but it won't go anywhere. If a judge orders somebody to be detained illegally by accident, or if there's a miscarriage of justice, that judge has immunity. There's a limited immunity, but I say limited immunity. Judges don't get immunity to break the law just because they're judges. Oh, because you smoke cannabis in a courtroom? It's Kabuki theatre, as Tom Fitton of Judicial Watch would say. The military parade. Well, lots of countries hold military parades. It happened to be not only Donald Trump's 79th birthday. This is a guy who should be putting his feet up and on the beach or playing around with golf or enjoying his grandkids. No, he's chosen to do this, you know, to make America sane again. And it was the 250th anniversary of American Army, whatever. So why shouldn't they hold a military parade? Don't other countries have military parades? We've just had Trooping the Colour here. And finally, we'll deal with the federalising the National Guard and selling in the Marines. The summer of Floyd, 2020, Trump eased off and he showed such remarkable restraint because he didn't want to be branded a dictator. And the result was that Antifa, the scum of Black Lives Matter and many others, they torched America's great cities. Remember, mostly peaceful, remember that? Mostly peaceful. Caused an estimated $2 billion worth of damage. There were thousands of police officers injured, some of them seriously, no doubt. There were about, I think, 25 people murdered. And if Trump had sent in the National Guard, they would have called him a dictator. Well, now it's a choice between allowing the same lunatics, or the same type of lunatics, to burn Los Angeles to the ground and maybe half of the rest of California and other places, or suppress it. And he's chosen to suppress it. He sent in the National Guard to protect public buildings, and he sent in the Marines too. I said the final, one very final thing. Raskin said this was the 194th setback. In other words, this is lawfare against Trump. They've been using activist judges to put out national injunctions. This is something called forum shopping or judge shopping. They go to a judge in a certain jurisdiction. He takes out an injunction, it applies nationwide. Well, the courts have now put a stop to this, the Supreme Court. And this is just pure obstruction. It's the will of the people that the countless millions of illegal immigrants who were allowed in, and in some cases flown in by the previous administration, that they should be deported. They include criminal gangs. As Trump has pointed out, Venezuela appears to have emptied its prisons and its psychiatric hospitals onto the United States. There have been many high-profile murders. Jocelyn Nungaray, a 12-year-old girl, for example. Laken Riley, a 22-year-old young woman. Horrible case. And Trump has said no more, and the people have said no more. And really, Raskin is, in fact, this guy's a piece of dirt. So anyway, check out the video. I won't put links to them here, but if you haven't seen them, you'll see the judge in Wisconsin allowing this illegal immigrant out. You see the Padilla incident, much more. And Tyler Cohen, well, I mean, a channel with 4.5 million subscribers, really, he doesn't deserve 4,500.